Hey there, I'm the MadCatster. I'm glad to see you here. Well, I've got the third installment and final installment of the story of Alling with Ari, the lies and the deception. And this is probably the darkest and saddest chapter in this mess. And it involves a child. And we're going to talk about it right now. So let's get into it. So I'm here with Sybil the Enforcer, and she says, please subscribe and like. Yes, you, please subscribe. I know a lot of you are not subscribed who are watching. We'd really appreciate your support. But I want to talk to you about the third and final installment in this Alling with Ari saga. And first, I want to say a couple of things. The first is, there's been a few people who are expressing support for her, and, that's totally fine. But they're making it sound like, we're picking on her somehow, or, we're trying to drag her through the mud, as somebody said, for her past mistakes. And that's not, you're missing the point, is what I want to say. And to those of you who have thought that, and there's only a handful, I'd like to say that it's not her past that we're taking issue with. It's the fact that she hasn't been honest. And in fact, she hasn't been honest about quite a few things. First and foremost, and probably least important, is her birthday. In her very first video, I don't know if you've seen it, but she made a big deal about telling us, oh, my birthday's coming up in a few days on July 25th, and I'm all alone, and I'm going to be alone, but that's okay. Well, it turns out, according to the records, her birthday's in January. It's not even in July. So if she can't even tell the truth about something that basic, okay, someone said to me, oh, she's trying to get her life back on track. And that's great. If she's really trying to do that, absolutely fantastic. But let me tell you, putting your life together and getting over your past failings involves honesty first. You have to be honest with yourself and with others. And I know from personal experience, something I don't talk about often, but I've been sober for 21 years. And let me tell you, to get my life back on track from drinking the way I was back in the day took a lot of effort. It took a lot of strength, but it also took a lot of honesty. Me being honest with myself and with the people in my life. Otherwise, I could never have put together a stable, healthy life for myself that I have now and gotten as far as I've gotten if I hadn't been honest and done what was necessary to actually change my life. So the fact that she can't even tell the truth about most things, she's not trying to put her life back together, people. She's trying to find a way to live a bohemian lifestyle without having to work for it. So I don't know why people think that poor her, poor her. If she wasn't young and pretty, would you feel that way? If she was old and ugly, would you say, oh, look at this poor person trying to put her life back together? Leave her alone. It's like, no. If she was completely honest, I'd have no beef with her at all, And someone said, oh, you're jealous. It's like, sure, I'm jealous that she got 85,000 followers in 6 weeks. Of course I am. I'll tell you that right up. That's not why I'm talking about her. I'm talking about her because she's built her channel on lies and deceit. Okay? If I came on here and told you I was a lawyer and I really wasn't, that would kind of undermine my credibility, don't you think? So, and yes, I am a real lawyer. I'm licensed in 4 states. I've told you people that. So, but you can't pretend to be something you're not in order to get sympathy, to build up a following, and say that that's trying to put your life back together, because it's not. It's a lie. It's built on a lie. And she'll never have stability, and she'll never have success in her life until she tells the truth. So now this brings us to what I think, and this is not a funny video. I'm not going to be using sarcasm about her in this video because this part of it is not funny, okay? One of the biggest things that she's not told us, in addition to most of her origin story. Oh, and I want to also say, I apologize to her for saying that I didn't think she was actually from Arkansas, because it turns out she really is from Arkansas. And this is honesty's the best policy. I fully admit that that was my mistake. According to an affidavit I read from her grandfather, who was also her adoptive father, I guess when she was 2 years old, he said they adopted her. So I don't know what her family situation was with her parents, but she was adopted into her grandparents' family, and they treated her like a daughter. And it sounds to me, based on what I read, because unfortunately, sadly, her grandfather slash father passed away a few years ago. But from what I read, she had a very comfortable life. He was a very successful person. They lived in an extremely nice house. She had probably everything she could ever have wanted. So the circumstances she finds herself in, as we learn all the facts, they're all of her own making, people. She's not a victim. So please stop victimizing her. Okay? So anyways, she had a child. Okay, and she wasn't married to her partner, which, I mean, I could care less about that. But I guess because of the situation, she must have said that the father was unknown on the birth certificate, because he filed a court case to get custody, and I'll explain that in a second. But one of the parts of the court case was he had to get the court to declare that he was the father. So, and she didn't deny that he was the father. Anyways, there's this child, and I'm not going to name any names except hers, and her real name is Ronnie Ann Spurr. So I'll probably just call her Ronnie. You know, I hate calling her Ari because that's not really her name. But, and I know some people said, oh, well, she says she changed it legally. Well, show me the proof. You know, changing your name, it's not a terribly difficult process, but the fact that she has a criminal record, you know, a lot of times the court will, you know, question you about that. You know, do you have a criminal record, blah, blah, blah. And there are times when they won't let you change your name if they think you're trying to avoid responsibility for your past actions. So I can't speak to whether she has changed her name because I haven't seen any legal documents. So she had this child. Apparently, and I haven't seen the records, so I'm just going on what other sources have told me. Apparently, the child suffered a serious injury while in her care, that it caused, her conduct had caused great concern with both the child's father and her own family. And at some point, the father petitioned the court for custody because he didn't feel that the child's best interest was staying with the mother any longer. And the telling thing is, and I'll put it up here, is that with this court case, the grandfather slash father, her father slash grandfather, filed an affidavit, and an affidavit's like a sworn statement, in support of the baby's father against his own daughter slash granddaughter. So that's pretty telling. If he felt compelled to do that, then he really must have been concerned, and he says he's concerned in the affidavit. He also says that she's no longer living with them because she threatened, allegedly, her grandmother with physical harm. So they kicked her out of the house, and they changed the locks, and that was the end of her living with them. So I kind of wonder whether she's conflating and, you know, mixing up details of her story, you know, about how she got kicked out of her grandparents' house in California, whether that's, you know, did she also get kicked out of their house is what I was wondering. And then I have to say, well, you know, she made it sound like, oh, it's not any fault of her own that she got kicked out. And I have to say, well, if her own parents, adoptive parents slash grandparents, felt it necessary to kick her out of the house and change the locks, then I have to ask myself, what did she do in California to cause that part of her family to also kick her out of the house? Okay, so I don't think it's quite as innocent or quite as blameless as she's tried to lead us to believe. So that's my opinion, okay? But let's talk about the child custody case. So allegedly the child was injured. I don't know. But here is the petition for custody, and I'm going to put it up here. Okay, so I've redacted the names of the child and the father because I don't think it's relevant. I don't want to draw any unnecessary attention to other people involved in this story out of, you know, respect for them and their privacy. Obviously, I'm going to show you her name because we know what her name is, and it's not Ari. So he petitions the court for an order of paternity and an adjudication of custody, visitation, and child support. So he's asking the court to give an order regarding where the child's going to live and when she can visit and any child support payments that might need to be made towards the child's care. So it just says, that they were involved in a relationship, they had a child, and I'm wrong because it says the plaintiff acknowledged paternity of the child and is reflected as the father on the child's birth certificate. So I don't know why they needed an order stating that he was the father, whether maybe that's just a procedural thing that they do down in Arkansas. I don't know. But anyway, I guess apparently I'm wrong. The birth certificate does have his name on it. It says the parties have been amicably operating in a shared parenting schedule since the birth of the child until December 2013, at which time their relationship was severed due to the defendant, Ari/Ronnie's, irresponsible attitude and actions. It says the defendant had been residing with her parents until on or about 3 weeks ago, at which time she got into an altercation with her mother and threatened to physically harm her, resulting in the defendant being asked to leave the residence. The father's work schedule is such that he works 2 weeks, then is home for 1 week, and during the time that he was gone, the defendant, Ronnie, would leave the child with either his parents or her parents most of the time. So what he's saying is, when he was gone, instead of taking care of the baby, she would pawn the baby off on either her parents or his parents, and God knows, do whatever she wanted to do. So, that's pretty irresponsible. It says that according to the defendant's father, the grandfather, who has concerns about the defendant's care of the baby, the defendant, Ronnie, would leave the baby with them. And so the grandfather's confirming this story. Leave the baby with them and stay gone for days without either he or his wife, so neither of her adoptive parents, knowing her whereabouts or having any way to contact her in the event of an emergency. So, she has to give consent, or the father has to give consent. If something happened to the baby and it needed surgery, the grandparents can't just say, yes, go ahead. They need parental consent. So that's a big deal. You leave your child with your parents and then you go running off and not tell them where you are. That's pretty bad, especially, she wasn't like a teenager at the time. She was in her early 20s. Goes on to say that since leaving her parents' residence, the defendant has taken up residence with a person to whom she is not married, and I'll black out his name, who appears from public records to be an unsavory character. That's, in their opinion, I guess. For he has been convicted of several offenses ranging from violations to Class A misdemeanor theft of property, as she has been, including several driving offenses, including reckless driving, as well as offenses of disrespect for law and order, resulting in failure to appear warrants. Well, this is her story, too. So clearly she fell in with this guy, and he wasn't the most moral character, and I don't know whether it was at his encouragement that she lost her way even further, or whether it was a mutual thing. I don't know. But it sounds like the two of them were not leading a very healthy life. So the father, understandably, is very concerned about the safety of his child. And no doubt anybody would be. I mean, I certainly would be. I'm sure all of you would be. And it says that the plaintiff, the baby's father's impression now is that the mother, Ronnie, takes the baby to work with her, which is not a proper nurturing environment for the baby, since the defendant's attention will be divided between performing her job and caring for the infant. So yeah, it's kind of weird. Like, I don't know what kind of job she was doing back then, but that you could bring your child to work, and it's like, it doesn't sound like she was leaving it in daycare at work, because I know some companies have daycare. It sounds like she just was bringing the baby to work. So I don't know what she was doing, but it says she has a history of instability and she's been hospitalized for mental health issues. She's attempted to harm herself in the past, and I'm not going to read the rest of that. So she's clearly had periods of instability, which is not, mental health issues are not something that should be brand somebody an unfit person. And, that has no relevance, in my opinion, to this whole situation. It's sad and it's a contributing factor. So it says that she has been convicted of no seatbelt, careless and prohibited driving, speeding, driving under the influence of alcohol, driving, which is obviously a serious thing. Driving while drunk is extremely bad. Not only could she harm herself, but she could harm somebody else, and God forbid she has the baby with her. It says that the defendant has advised the plaintiff that she intends to travel to Tunica, which I'm assuming is a town in Arkansas, for a small vacation with this guy that she's living with, and the infant during the week that the father is supposed to have the child, that the baby's father is supposed to have custody. And she's going to leave the child at a casino facility, so I'm assuming the casino has daycare, while she and this guy party. The defendant's actions are irresponsible, and the plaintiff fears for the safety of the child traveling with the defendant and with this man, and further being left in the care of casino facility with strangers, obviously. You know, and he's the one, he's supposed to have the child, so what is she, just trying to spite him? You know, everything about the whole greater situation just really makes me a very unhappy person. And so they asked for an expedited hearing, obviously, because if she's planning to leave town with the baby when she's not supposed to have the baby, then, you know, it doesn't sound like that's a court-ordered visitation. So, you know, it's not like she's going to get arrested for doing it, but it sounds like they have this agreement between them, and it's supposed to be his week, and she's saying, no, I'm going to take the baby to party with us at the casino. So I see his point, don't you? I think that's pretty reasonable to not want her to do that. So then here's the affidavit from the grandfather / adoptive father. And he says, I, Ronald Spurr, age 74, father of Ronnie Spurr, age 23, do hereby state under oath as follows. I have concerns as to the care of my grandson, actually his great-grandson, and I'm not going to obviously give his name, date of birth, I'm not going to give that. Ronnie Spurr is my granddaughter, whom I adopted at age 2. Ronnie has always lived with my wife, her adoptive mother, Ann Spurr, and I since then. I love my daughter very much and know that she loves her baby and means well, but she's just not very responsible when it comes to the baby's care. After the baby was born, Ronnie has on at least 3 occasions, in my opinion, acted irresponsibly regarding the care of the baby. Ronnie would simply leave the baby with us and stay gone for a few days without either of us knowing where she was or have any way to contact her in case of emergency with the baby, or with us for that matter. Recently, Ronnie and her mother, my wife, had an argument, and Ronnie cursed and threatened my wife, and I believe the threat was that she would slap her effing face. I was present when this happened. This scared my wife, and Ronnie was asked to leave our home, and we changed the locks to our home. So it had to have been pretty serious. He's saying he loves his daughter, the Ronnie, Ari. I believe him. I have no reason to doubt that. But that it was so serious, and they were so concerned and fearful of her conduct that they felt it necessary not only to tell her to leave, but to change the locks. So it said a few days later, she came back and came in through the garage by using the garage door opener out of the grandfather's truck, which she knew the combination to. So she knew how to get into his truck. And she then left when they requested. So there wasn't any trouble, but, you know, that's kind of scary that, you know, she was still able to get into the house when they didn't want her there. I know this will be presented in a custody case and swear that statements are true, blah, blah, blah. So that was in January 2014. So here's the grandfather / father saying, I agree with this guy who is in no legal way part of my family, but is the baby's father, and I want him to have custody because I'm afraid that my own daughter / granddaughter is going to cause the baby harm, or the baby will come to harm in her custody. So that's pretty serious, people. So this is what they ended up ordering, okay? They said it was a temporary order, which I'm assuming became permanent. So this is what the court ordered. The court said, plaintiff shall have temporary custody of the minor child until further orders of the court. Defendant shall continue to have visitation supervised by plaintiff's parents at their home from 6 to 8 p.m. So at the baby's father's parents, 6 to 8 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays of each week, from 8 a.m. to noon every other Saturday, and any other agreed supervised visitation. So it's, you know, it's also telling the fact that she can't be with the child unattended. It says a plaintiff shall not be present during defendant's visitation. So he's not going to be there. It'll be either his parents or her parents. And the defendant, meaning Ronnie, shall not bring others to the visitation. Means she can't bring her boyfriend along. It's just got to be her. It says the plaintiff and or his parents shall keep the defendant well advised of any issues relating to the child, including but not limited to health, development, daycare, and well-being. So that was the court's order. And I wasn't able to see any further orders on the docket to download. So I'm assuming at some point they probably had another hearing. This became permanent. And so that's the situation with the child. It's very sad. Like I said, this is not a situation for any joking or sarcasm. There's a couple of questions that come to mind. The first is, well, she never even mentioned her child in any of her videos, which is very sad. But she's also left her child behind, presumably, in Arkansas. And since she claims not to have any funds, when does she see this child? This child is growing up. I think the child's like 9 years old now, without a mother. You know, it's like, I don't know. It's very concerning to me, and it's very troublesome that is the situation. But it's even more troublesome that this is probably the biggest part of her life, and she was not honest with anybody. She did not share this. You know, she made it sound like she was just single, carefree, you know, living the bohemian life, smoking herb and going to the beach. And, you know, clearly she has more responsibilities than that. And it's not just about her paying her bills. You know, she has a child whose life she should be a part of, and yet she's off in California, you know, the other side of the country, where she has no easy way to go visit, even though it sounds like she probably has some right to visitation. So this is what it comes down to. Whatever you think of her, okay? She has not been honest with anyone, probably including herself. She's apparently not told the truth about a whole host of things. So to the people who say, oh, leave her alone, she's trying to put her life back together, I argue back to you, she's not trying to put her life back together. She's trying to live her life devoid of anything to do with her past. That's not putting your life back together. That's running away, okay? That's not putting your life back together. Putting your life back together is facing your problems and dealing with them and being honest about your mistakes and rebuilding your life to a stable, healthy thing. She's not doing any of that. So please, don't make her a victim. If you feel sympathy for her, hold your comments to yourself, please. If you have a point that you want to make to refute something I've said, great. But don't just say, oh, leave her alone, okay? Because I'm not going to leave her alone. I think this situation is terrible. And I think that she's basically defrauded everybody by not being honest and not by not telling her truth, okay? So she's not who she says she is. She's not an honorable person, in my opinion, based on the preponderance of the evidence that I see. So that's my opinion. Let me know what you think down in the comments. Again, this is not a situation to joke about, this particular part of it. It's very sad. It makes me very angry. And I feel terrible for her child to have to go through their development without the mother nearby. And I don't know what kind of a person does that. I'm just giving you my take on it. And that's my take on it. So let me know what you think down below. Please like and subscribe. Let me know what you think. Take care of yourselves. Thank you to all of our supporters. I really, really appreciate all of you. And I'll see you in the next one.